won his first Emmy Award last September for Game of Thrones. And that's why he's here tonight to talk more about this last season of Game of Thrones for HBO. Other than that win, you had 5 other nominations. You've had Prison Break. Do you remember them all? Flash Forward, Game of Thrones, another nomination, and 2 for Westworld. So very prolific. And movies he's worked on, you may or may not know, Iron Man, Pacific Rim, Clash of the Titans, Wrinkle in Time, and you've also been working on the new Jack Ryan series, right? Okay, Game of Thrones just ended. Everybody saw the finale, 9 days ago? Tell us about what it was like. Did you go watch it with a group of people, or how did you approach the finale from a public standpoint?
Actually, I did for the first time, because normally, in the past seasons, I would never watch the show for 2 reasons. One is because usually I would be still working on later episodes in the season, so I was still busy. And the other reason being that whenever I would watch an episode, I would still think about, maybe I should have tweaked this a bit more and changed this. So I just couldn't do it. But this final season, I just couldn't let go. So I actually decided to watch it with people, and I wanted to see their reaction and just take it in one more time.
When the episode he's submitting to Emmy voters, you could probably all guess, is The Long Night, which was the big battle episode that everybody was anticipating all year long. When I saw reviews that night on social media, I guess you could call those reviews, and all the next day on media companies, I have never in my life heard people talk as much about the score as they did about action, plot, characters, or anything else going on. What was your reaction to their reaction?
It was wonderful to see. I mean, when I write my music, I never think about, I can't think about what is the audience reaction. But it was certainly very rewarding to see that people really responded to the way we had decided to score that episode. So it was amazing.
What was your approach on that particular episode?
Well, what made that episode so difficult was it had more music than any other episode we've had in Game of Thrones. It was the longest battle we've ever had, and it was because the entire episode is basically one giant battle. So it was just very hard to structure and find the arc of what this is that we tried to achieve, and we were joking because we called it 1M1 because it's almost wall-to-wall music, which Game of Thrones usually doesn't have. So, but to find the right arc and to keep the tension, to give, because our heroes every once in a while would actually get a little reward where we would think, are they going to win? Can they defeat the Night King? But then it changes right back to it. So and to get that right was pretty tricky. And then of course at the very end, the big finale, the big piano piece that is almost 10 minutes long. So again, there's another big story arc to figure out musically with very little dialogue. Also a lot of sound effects that I had to be respectful to and find the right balance. So it was definitely a challenging episode.
I saw in one article where you were talking, I think it might have been in an article that ran the next day, talking about how you often use minor chords all throughout the series, but you end on a major chord at the end of this particular episode for maybe, if not the first time ever, it was very rare.
For sure, and in fact, we laughed about that actually, because it's true that the show Game of Thrones is just so dark. It's mainly minor chords, and over the years, whenever there was a little major chord coming through in there, David and Dan would say, "Ramin, did we just hear a major chord? Is that really a major chord?" And then in this episode, I just thought, well, let me just go for it and end on a big C major chord. So it just felt like it needed a big resolve. So. Yeah.
The other thing in that episode, and I think also in the finale, I noticed. For people like in our audience today that are that are composers, that are training to be composers, that really follow maybe music more than most people, they might have noticed some of these things, but I didn't notice them necessarily as much as they might have. You do callbacks to previous episodes, to previous seasons sometimes. You did that in this episode we're talking about now. You did that in the finale. It's almost like Easter eggs, isn't it? That you and your producers know, but maybe everybody doesn't catch. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've always treated the score as another character. So we've very carefully established thematic content from season 1 on, and gradually expanded on that. So because there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of plots. So we were careful not to overfill it right away. So over the seasons, unfortunately, the show ran for 8 seasons, so we were able to do that. Every season we would sit down and say, okay, these are our existing themes. What is new this season? What new themes do we need? This season it was obviously the big Night King piece that was a big new theme. But then I use those themes, and just with part of the storytelling, I just tell the story with music. I always like to say, if you close your eyes and just listen to that piece, I hope you can still remember how the scene went. And that was always a big discussion for us. And the beauty, again, with something that runs for 8 seasons, you're able to really establish something. This goes back to season 6, when we, for the first time in Game of Thrones score history, that we used the piano for this piece called Light of the Seven. And just by using a new instrument after 6 seasons, all of a sudden you really pay attention. You go, wait, we haven't heard this. This is not part of the sound of the score. Something is going on here. And then we took the same approach then for episode 3 in season 8, where we felt it's time for the piano again. And interestingly, then people automatically call back to season 6, to Light of the Seven, thinking, okay, here's the Night King. It's just like Cersei. This is the end. This is just going to blow up, and it's going to be in his favor. But here we were actually able to do the reverse effect and have the big surprise, obviously, at the end when Aria comes in and saves the day.
Every character, at least every major character, even minor characters, have themes that you've developed over the seasons. Do you have a particular character that you really love their theme more than anybody else? Or are they all like your kids?
Pretty much, actually. That's exactly what I like to say. I always tried to not pick favorites and treat them all the same, and just let the story guide me of what I have to write and how I need to shape the music. I mean, I can give multiple examples of how beautifully the characters have changed. Or Daenerys is always a good example, how she started out with no power, no dragons, and then the dragons hatch and the dragons get bigger and her power gets bigger, and therefore the score needed to get bigger and heroic. And then at the very end, obviously, we have a big turn, and it was just a beautiful opportunity to do that with music.
Has an actor ever discussed their theme with you?
Trying to think. A little bit, actually. Yeah, just I think actually Aria Macey just came up to me. I think, was it after season 6 that she just really enjoyed how her theme had developed and how she thought really matched well to her character.
And the final shots we ever see of the show, supposedly, maybe it comes back someday, but is Jon Snow leading through the snow, and you go back to your theme song, but a much different version of your theme song. Can you talk about ending the whole series on that?
Yeah, I mean, we felt that there was no better choice in ending the series than with ending with the main title theme, which is a theme that we really always looked at as an overall theme for everybody, for the show itself. And so we felt it was just a good book ending. But with this version, we actually have men, women, and kids choir singing the melody, and so it literally becomes a song of ice and fire.
And where will we hear you next? Westworld will be back next year.
Correct. Yeah, there's Westworld season 3, which I'm very excited about. There's a little trailer that was dropped that.
You've got a lot of new character themes to write.
Exactly. Yeah, it's I don't know anything about it yet. I have no idea what's happening. It's.
Well, I can tell you Aaron Paul is in it. That's about all I know of the new season.
Right. Yeah. So I'm very excited about it. I'm sure they have something very exciting coming our way. So I can't wait.
Well, we'll see you back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.